What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda out with my Maserati, and it's time to tune it up. So I've had my Mazzy here for a little while, and one of the things that I've got here is a lovely Ferrari-based V8. But I've noticed a couple things, and part of this is because I just haven't driven it very much. But one thing is when you hold down the start button on it, it definitely takes a couple seconds to crank and fire up. And then when it does crank and fire up, it kind of idles high and rough for the first few, let's call it 5, 6, maybe even 10 seconds sometimes, and then kind of settles back down into a normal idle. Those are all signs to me that the engine needs a little bit of a tune-up, and I'll call it a light tune-up because I'm really just talking about doing like the spark plugs. I don't think the coil packs are bad or anything like that. The problem with it is that tuning this up is a little bit difficult. Of course, if I give the engine a couple minutes to warm up, it sounds great, runs well, and all of that. But the problem here is that Maserati puts all of this cladding in here. It's kind of like the Porsches and everything else. It's just plastic covers. And then the coils are there screwed in with these hex bolts, so you have to remove a couple of those and you pull those out. And then the biggest problem here is just getting your wrench or spark plug remover into these holes. Especially with this cover in here, you can't do it. So that's why I've already taken these pieces out. Looks like we just have Phillips head screws to get the rest out. The one difficult thing here is that you're going to need a flathead screwdriver to pop out the little, or pull away that little metal collar here on the hydraulic here, because you're gonna have to pull this away to get this whole cover off. On top of that, you might be able to see on this side, this cover actually is broken in a couple places, and that plastic's broken there, and then I've got a partial crack over here. See it right there. And so I'm going to use Q-bond to fix that up when I've got everything out. So that's kind of another side benefit of it. But it's not just a quick pull the spark plugs out like it is on a lot of cars, especially on a 4 or 6 cylinder car where it's going to be quite a bit easier. But I'm going to start by removing all of the plastic pieces here, and then we'll get to the tune-up itself. Of course, some of the things that you're going to need are the sockets to get your spark plugs out. I do have a gapper tool here. I think these are these NGK spark plugs. I do have 8 of them here, are all pre-gapped to 0.027, which I think is the right distance. And then I also have a hex-based socket set, because we're going to need that to get that out. And then your standard wrenches and whatnot. And also some anti-seize for the spark plugs threading. All right, so I've got these side plastic panels off, and the first thing you're going to need is this hex socket, a 5mm, and that is going to fit right into these bolts here to pull this off. Now one thing I noticed is that this piece right up here is kind of retaining the spark plug wires, and you can see the coil pack wire going up in there. So I don't think I'm going to need to move this, because I think these can just kind of pivot away and allow me to get to the spark plugs, but hopefully I'm going to try not removing that plate there. All right, despite my best efforts, I did have to take off this kind of retention plate up at the top, and that's because these ignition coil packs have pretty long tubes, I guess, whatever you call them, extensions. You can buy those usually separately if those go bad. So to get that out, you really need more clearance for the cable there. So now we can get in there, and you can see that spark plug is actually down there. It's pretty deep, and so we're going to need an extender to get down there and get it. Now that kind of brings me to the back ones, which is where I might start, because I feel like those are going to be the worst ones, because right here we have brake lines, and on the other side I have the coolant reservoir, so getting those is going to be the hardest, and so I think I might start there. I actually did this exactly opposite as I was promising. I did the easy ones first to get a little success under my belt. And then I tackled these back ones here. And I want to show you, I just screwed in the old, or the new spark plug here, but I have Frankensteined this piece together, the spark plug socket, and then this, I think it's the 1/4 to 1/2 inch adapter, and then this little kind of CV universal joint, because there's not a lot of space back there. It means that I'm using a 1/2 inch socket to screw this in and loosen those back ones up, but you really need something that's going to be pretty or flush to the top of the valve cover there, because there's just not a lot of room in the back. Now I also want to quick show you here the spark plug that I pulled out, and here it is. They're not in terrible condition. You can see that the node is a little bit corroded. It looks like there's even a little rust around the tip of the threading. Some of these had you know, some burns, score marks, but they're not terrible. I'm really replacing them less about the mileage, which is 38,000 miles, and more because of the age. You know, these are about 15 years old, and I think they're the original ones, and replacing them with NGK. So I'm going to get that last one in there and then get everything tightened back up. I've got everything put back together, and now the biggest stress point here is not whether the car is dramatically improved, but whether or not it will even start. Power on. Woo! Starts up. That's a relief. You can still see the tach bouncing around there a little bit. But I tell you what, I think that'll kind of settle in, but I can tell you already, it's a lot smoother just sitting in here than it was before. So that seems to be sorted. Until next time on the Peter Von Panda channel, ta-la!